From the line of rulers that started with Henry VIII, the man who treated his wives with less warmth than a London winter, came a time when no man was left to wear the crown, and that crown settled, oddly fitting, on the head of a smart, razor-witted young woman, Lady Jane Grey. She wasn't crowned out of popular affection, as the family treated her like a pawn, married her off, and set her up as queen in their name. And days later she was accused of treason and sent to the block. She might have been a remarkable ruler if history had turned a different way. So here we explore another version of her story. The young woman sits with her maid and friend, Susanna and Esther, and while she's rather clinically inspecting Esther, they talk about the right moment to be intimate with a man. Her stance is clear, as she intends to keep her body for herself, not for some suitor, even hinting she'll likely never marry, because her ambition is to compile England's first complete compendium of medicinal herbs and their uses. Her friends are stunned, but she already has a plan to write the book, sell it, make money, and live free. Duty interrupts, so she recommends a herb for Esther and darts off. She, her sisters and their mother line up in forced politeness to receive the Duke of Leicester, their great-uncle once removed, who inherited their father's wealth at his passing and left the family scraping by on city charity. At dinner, the Duke treats table manners like a foreign concept, propping his legs on the table and irritating every lady present. When the young woman offers a remedy for the wound on his toe and mentions she read it in a book, he cuts her off, boasting that he denied his wives the chance to read, and then sliding into an even crasser boast that his seeds were so large, none of his wives survived childbirth. Then comes the reason he's there. They found a husband for her. Shock freezes the would-be queen before she snaps and protests, startling the old man, and her mother hustles her out.
Shut up!
I'm sorry.
You should be!
In her room, the mother lays it bare that the daughter's lack of interest in men forced their hand, and Lord Guildford Dudley will be her husband. She protests again, listing his vices: vile in character, a gambler, a lover of strong wine, quick to fight, and mixed with women of ill repute. But the match is strategic, a tie to the Dudleys' money and power that will secure the family socially and financially, now that there's no inheritance. When her mother moves to slap her, she blocks the hand and warns her to stop, vowing to break free. Her mother replies that the wedding is only a few days away, and as the older woman leaves, she notices the herb book is missing, thrown into the fire, and watching her prized pages burn brings her to tears. Later, she turns to Susanna for help, interrupting an intimate moment to pitch an escape. The friend is reluctant at first, then smiles at the idea and runs off with her, despite warnings about the dangers of the Etheons. In the woods, the sound of dogs and the stamping of horses forces them into hiding, but they're found. The mother switches the story, accusing Susanna of stealing a ring and holding the girl hostage.
That's the thief that stole my ring and kidnapped my daughter.
The friend apologizes, slips free, and in a breath transforms into a hawk and flies away.
Jane, forgive me.
She's an Etheon, one of the humans who can shift into animals. Lady Frances goes to London to finalize wedding plans with the Dudleys, followed secretly by the sharp-tongued daughter. At the Dudley house, she meets the patriarch, who outlines the plans, and she doesn't spare him a blunt question about his son's habits. She repeats that she refuses Guildford, and he merely smiles and dismisses her. Outside, she intervenes when a man bullies children, forcing him to behave, and later learns he is a Dudley himself and mistakes him for her husband-to-be, which cements her certainty that the marriage can't happen. She visits her cousin King Edward, who dismisses counselors pushing for harsh proclamations against Etheons. While they walk, she lays out her mother's plans and asks for intervention, but he's already given his blessing and urges her to proceed, saying she can help Guildford improve the way she once helped him. Worse, he tells her he's ill and may perish soon, a revelation that weakens the lady, though the king remains oddly cheerful. They meet Princesses Mary and Bess, and when Edward takes a piece of cake from their plates, his coughing becomes violent. She fetches a plant, and within moments the king is fine, leaving everyone stunned. Lord Seymour sends the rest away, claiming the king's health is secure, and when the elder Dudley urges Edward to name a successor, Seymour suggests Mary, but Dudley objects, arguing she isn't truly royal, and noting the other princess has Etheon blood that would make her ineligible, a line of argument that pushes toward naming the young woman, though Seymour resists. Edward writes his choice, seals it, and orders it opened only after his passing. After a tiff, the counselor brings a special pie to the king, but the royal dog Petunia attacks him, and when the man calls the king weak for sparing the pet, the ruler sends him away. The would-be queen slips her escort and hides in a tavern, where she meets a quick-witted stranger, who matches her banter. Authorities storm in hunting Archer and Etheon, and the man turns into a bear. Chaos erupts, and other Etheons reveal themselves. She glimpses Susanna before the hawk takes flight, and she's arrested for aiding an Etheon. In Edward's chambers, Petunia transforms into a woman and says she was sent by her grandmother, who faked her passing and is alive, claiming the king might not be sick of the affliction, but slowly poisoned. She urges him to leave, but he refuses, determined to unmask the traitor. Lord Seymour later greets Princess Mary in private and assures her the king's end is near. Those accused of aiding Etheons are drowned. When the sentence reaches the young woman, her mother intervenes to save the girl. Yet on the way home, the mother threatens to give the younger sister's hand to the elderly duke, unless the match to Guildford goes ahead. While bathing, she thinks of the tavern stranger. An idea strikes, and she whispers it to her little sister. On the wedding day, the sister slips an item into her hand before she steps out, and when the king walks her down the aisle, she's stunned to see the tavern man standing as Lord Guildford Dudley. He's equally shocked. He says his vows, and when it's her turn, she coughs blood and collapses. The king coughs too, but her illness is a ruse, and the husband-to-be knows it. The king's doctor examines the young bride thoroughly, declaring her completely free of illness and perfectly fit to proceed with the wedding. For good measure, he proceeds to slice the sole of her foot, making her cheerfully claim she feels better than ever. In truth, she had mixed herbs into a convincing, blood-like potion just to fake an ailment and avoid the ceremony. Their back and forth is interrupted when her mother, Lady Frances, sweeps in, reminding her that this marriage is a political strategy, nothing more. Across the hall, Old Man Dudley is delivering the same speech to his son, Guildford. The two newlyweds continue sparring with sharp words, while guests laugh, drink, and dance. Frances, meanwhile, finds time to flirt openly with young Stan Dudley. At the palace, the king sits surrounded by his supposed allies, pretending to be weak and gulping water. When someone mentions the rise of Etheons, his eyes sharpen.
More Etheon uprisings in the north.
The moment the room clears, the king's dog transforms into human form and offers him food, which is his first real meal in a while. The two plan to capture the poisoner the very next day, with the king swearing the culprit will be boiled alive.
We can find the poisoner by finding the source of the poison.
When I find my poisoner, I can order them boiled to death.
The Etheon insists he also comes to meet his grandmother, and surprisingly, he agrees. Back at the reception, guests chant for the couple to kiss. Guildford, ever the petty performer, dips his bride low on the dance floor, hovers inches from her lips, and then refuses to kiss her, leaving her startled and annoyed. Later, in their chamber, she reiterates her disinterest in staying in the marriage. Old Man Dudley barges in, reminding them of the bedding ceremony and practically ordering his son to make the union official.
You must actually shag. Seal the deal.
The guests and family gather, eager for a show. The pair lie in bed, legs crossed over one another, convincingly faking intimacy. Once the crowd leaves, they immediately separate. Guildford leans in to say something, close enough to spark a flicker of attraction, but pulls away at the last second. Offended, she calls him names and throws her drink. He tries to throw one back but misses. Meanwhile, Frances and Stan slip into a private corner. Their flirtation escalates quickly into full intimacy, with Frances ignoring Stan's awkward confession that his father is broke. In the stables, she finds Guildford bathing. The sight of his toned body nearly makes her drool, but the moment collapses into another argument. He orders her to leave, but as the sun sets, he transforms into a horse before her eyes. Old Man Dudley steps in, calmly advising her to handle the situation with care. Any attempt to expose her husband will doom them all. She must stand by him and join him on the honeymoon, and adds pointedly that she was a fool to expect a proper man, given her own history. Elsewhere, the Etheon takes the king to a market in search of the poison seller. When they find her, they recover a vial of the deadly concoction. The king immediately decides to send word to his cousin, who is already plotting her escape from the marriage. She meets the king, warning him about the potency of the poison before venting about her disastrous union. The king advises her to make the best of it. She fires back with insults. He dismisses her with the cutting remark that she'll only ever be a wife, and they part on bad terms. Soon after, the king gathers his court, announcing that he knows he's being poisoned. They swear to find the traitor, but he warns that if they fail, they will all be boiled alive.
I have reason to believe that my would-be assassin is somebody at court. I'll assume you're all treasonous bastards. Bugger off!
Meanwhile, Old Man Dudley grows suspicious. and sends Stan to retrieve the king's will for safekeeping. Stan returns with bad news that the will is missing. Not long after, the king's men return with supposed good news, but Lord Seymour points the finger at Dudley for the poisoning. The king orders Dudley locked up. When the king's dog won't stop barking, the senior princess takes it away. In private, she slips close to the king, and he notices the ring the poison seller described on her. But it's too late as she sprinkles a powder on him. The couple arrives at their honeymoon destination, only for the bride to discover that her wedding gifts are actually boxes of books. It's Guilford's way of revealing that he married her to enlist her help in breaking his Etheon curse. Sensing her leverage, she demands a divorce, and his promise never to demand her obedience. Only then will she help him, and to her surprise, he agrees. They decide to sleep in separate rooms. There's a moment at the door where both seem tempted to close the distance between them, but pride wins out. She bids him goodnight, though neither is comfortable with it. Back at the castle, the king wakes in the highest chamber to overhear unsettling whispers in the hall. He bolts from bed and blocks the door, but when the princess and lord break in, he's gone. Moments later, they spot his royal garment floating in the nearby lake. Convinced he fell to his doom during an escape attempt, they celebrate. The would-be queen's remedies have done nothing for her husband yet. After the 10th failed attempt, his curse remains unchanged. Still, it's time for them to leave, and so she prepares to travel with her horse husband, only to receive grim news. Susanna has been kidnapped. She hurries to see the maid and requests money for the rescue, but the woman refuses, insisting she won't hand over a single coin of the Dudleys without Lord Guildford's direct approval. In the palace prison, Dudley pleads his innocence to a bored guard, begging for an audience with the king. The guard casually shares a rumor that the king may already be 6 feet under. The thought makes Dudley sweat, especially with the king's will missing. Elsewhere, the scheming princess is tangled in a mix of pain and pleasure with her lover in his chambers when Princess Bess bursts in, concerned about the king's condition. She's waved away, and the princess returns to her lover, eager for more dominance. Though she wants to publicly declare the king's passing, her lover tells her to wait, as he has business to handle first. The stolen will is still unaccounted for, so he orders his men to hunt down the newlyweds and end them. Stan visits his father in prison and delivers the bad news that the will is gone. Dudley tells him their best hope is to get someone influential and clever on their side. Stan finds Princess Frances, but she refuses to acknowledge him, too busy escorting Catherine into marriage with the very old Duke. Guilford returns home, and his wife immediately reports Susanna's kidnapping, asking for help. He tells her bluntly that the Dudleys are broke. Furious at the deception her family has suffered, she nevertheless focuses on saving her friend. She gathers valuables to sell, ignoring Guilford's objections, leaving first as he follows soon after. Meanwhile, Princess Mary convenes the council and announces that the king is near gone and won't survive the night. She proclaims herself his chosen successor and promises to expand the division laws.
Sadly, our prayers have failed. King Edward will not last the night.
One member protests, reminding her that the king must be confirmed gone before anyone claims the throne, and that his will alone will decide the matter. Mary silences him with an enticing public offer. As the meeting breaks, she quietly informs her sister that the king is already gone, while Catherine's wedding to the decrepit duke continues, much to Margaret's disapproval. The scheming lord forges the king's will. He enlists a jailed Etheon, tricks him into transforming, then stomps him to his early grave. The couple treks through the woods. When Guilford tries to correct his wife's dagger grip, she refuses his instruction, insisting she's the better fighter. They wager that the loser of a sparring match will have to answer one question honestly. Their duel is evenly matched, blades flashing as they press closer and closer, faces nearly touching, until she disarms him and wins. Again, she asks what it was like the first time he transformed. Again, he grows angry and refuses. Back at the wedding feast, Margaret tries to guilt her mother, who sends her away. Stan approaches next, pleading his father's case, but Frances shows no interest. She even tells him he's no longer welcome between her thighs until she catches sight of his arousal and changes her mind. The pair locate the hostage, only to discover Susanna is free and living with the pack. Outraged, the lady pulls her aside. Susanna insists her people are in danger and will not survive the next season without funds.
Ethians cannot survive another winter in the wild.
Hurt, she accuses Susanna of betrayal. The hawk retorts that her mistress has never even asked about her family. She reveals that her parents beat her nearly to her early grave when she first transformed, and the pack rescued her, gave her a life, and found her work in the royal household.
Did you ever really ask about my family or where I come from? My parents beat me half to death.
Suddenly, cries ring out as Lord Seymour's hitmen have arrived. They've just slit the throats of the Queen's friends. Guildford orders Susanna to run and shields his wife. But the men are here for the newlyweds, so Guildford fights, urging her to hide. She grows tired of cowering and knocks one attacker down with a heavy stone, then expertly slashes the other with her dagger, giving Guildford the opening to join the fight. The wounded men flee. The danger sparks something between them. They clutch each other, then kiss hungrily and passionately. Back home, the heat carries on as they strip each other's clothes, touching and kissing until she pulls back, declaring she still wants a divorce.
I want a divorce.
Before nightfall, Guildford checks in on his wife. They discuss why the king's guard came after them but find no clear answer. He finally honors his promise, saying the first time he transformed was the day his mother was silenced forever. He begs never to speak of it again, and she agrees. He then heads to the stable, waiting for the sun to set over him and transform him. The Lord has no control of this. Margaret, furious about her sister's marriage to the Duke, finds the old man passed out. She shoves a fruit into his mouth and covers his nose until he stops breathing. Their mother discovers the scene, but treats it as nothing unusual. News breaks that the king is gone. Princess Mary calls the council, producing the forged will. Princess Bess has been in custody of the stolen will to preserve his brother's last wish, so Petunia takes the document and runs off. While Mary quickly notices hers lacks the royal seal, the king's dog trots in and hands the royally sealed will to Charles,
I have King Edward's will.
who is shocked to read the king's true wishes. Then comes the final blow as Lady Jane learns she has been named the king's successor. The new queen and her horse-turned husband make a grand entrance into the palace, council members and guests, even her own family, bowing low and chanting Her Majesty, like they actually mean it. The shock of the moment has her walking like she's in a trance, but she still trades a rare polite word with her mum before promptly fainting like a dramatic heroine. Princess Mary isn't clapping for anyone. She's still harping on about being the firstborn, which, in her head, means the throne is hers. She cooks up a neat little plan to flip the people against her sister, conveniently leaving out the bigger picture so her lover doesn't fumble it. Charles comes to brief the monarch about how the king decided to be alone before the news of his passing broke, but she's not buying it. Edward wouldn't have done that, and this whole Dudley the traitor story isn't sitting well either. She heads straight to the king's last room to snoop, where Guildford pops in, pledging to help her dig into this royal mess. They're inches from kissing, but sunset's coming, and hubby has to go do his horse thing. On Coronation Day, Mum is practically doing pirouettes in the hallway, fussing with dresses and jewelry while feeding her daughter royal to-do lists. But one thing the new ruler won't do is execute Dudley. She's convinced he's innocent, just like Edward would have been. Then she notices a wedding ring on her sister's finger. As it turns out, Mum's married her off to the crusty old Duke. But the silver lining is that the Duke's gone, and that means cash at last. Mum retires to her room, barking out orders for lavish meals before flopping onto her bed, smug as a cat in cream. Her Majesty's first official ruling is Dudley's trial. He swears he's innocent, but the counselor claims there's a witness who saw him poisoning the king's tea. The queen calls for a private audience. The witness fumbles every answer, and she catches her in a lie, as the woman wasn't even working that day. When she pushes, the counselor signals for the witness to shut up. Instead, the woman bolts, transforming into a small animal mid-run, and is promptly speared by guards. The ruler scolds the counselor for murdering people on the spot, but he calls Etheon's beasts, then pats her on the back for clearing Dudley. The counselor later happens to wander into the stables, finding Rupert tending to a horse. He lingers long enough to make you sweat for Guildford's secret, but leaves just in time for transformation hour. Meanwhile, Princess Mary, who knows it was her sister who stole the will, catches Petunia. With a knife to her throat, Mary makes the good princess agree to earn back her good graces. The job is to place a sealed box, containing an Etheon, near the queen. Bess delivers the box, but, mid-chat with the monarch, notices it crack open, a snake's head peeking out, making her change her mind and take it away. Guildford comes in right after, whining about not being safe and reminding her to keep her promise to cure him so they can split. There's another flicker of chemistry. They kiss, and then both act like they shouldn't have. Guildford's dad advises him to push his wife into naming him king for his own safety, but the younger man calls him out for just wanting a shortcut to the throne. Dad insists it's for the family. Petunia eventually reveals the snake was an Etheon and spills everything she knows about the king's so-called passing. The queen wakes from a nightmare of Seymour and his goons chasing her. She raids the counselor's office for the king's guard list, but he walks in and tosses it into the fire. So she hosts a dinner party to distract him while her little sister breaks in and nicks a book. Mary tries to poison the Queen's drink at dinner, but the endless table chatter results in Mum picking it up instead. The counselor slaps it away, glass shattering. The royal couple read the stolen book in the stables, and bingo! It proved the lovers were behind the king's murder. Elsewhere, Stan almost confesses Guilford's furry secret to Francis, who clocks a clue and makes him do it. Mary storms the stables after Seymour hints at weird goings-on there. The Queen blocks her path, revealing she knows Mary hurt the king.
You killed Edward! I have proof.
The princess launches herself at her, rips the letterproof, and strangles her until she's out cold, and then she bolts. While Guilford transforms, Mary spies through a crack in the wall. And plot twist, the king's not deceased. The king wakes to find his grandmother Margaret fussing over him. The moment his eyes open, he tries to get back to the palace, but she blocks him. Turns out, one of the nuns had carried him down from the castle while he was out cold and delivered him straight into Grandma's capable hands. Back at court, the Queen learns that Princess Mary swiped all the evidence while she was unconscious and Rupert, Guilford's groom, had whisked it away for safekeeping. Meanwhile, the Etheons are cooking up an alliance with the Scots to hit England, but before they can clink glasses over it, the Kingsland Guards show up swinging swords and yelling about carrying out the Queen's orders. The Queen's former maid, now caught in the crossfire, looks confused, but still fights like her rents due. When the Queen brings her troubles to Old Man Dudley, he suggests she name her husband king, which would bring instant respect and an instant patriarchal shield against the wicked princess and anyone else with bad intentions. Before she can answer, Charles barges in with a message from her mom summoning the Queen. She waves it off.
Your mother requests your presence urgently.
Tell her that I'm busy.
But ends up deciding to see Susanna instead. The princess, on the other hand, is moving fast. She meets Lord Norfolk, who promises her 5,000 men in exchange for booting Lord Seymour,
and I'll send 5,000 men to fight for you,
and making him Lord Chancellor when she gets the throne. The nobility finally meets Jane, and the palace hall gets a flashy makeover courtesy of Princess Frances. The Queen meets her old maid and hears the accusation about ordering the Kingsland Guards to attack. She swears she had nothing to do with it.
What happened to you?
Did you order your guards to attack us?
What? I would never order them to do that.
Then storms straight into the Lord's gathering. In front of everyone, she disbands the Kingsland Guards responsible for hunting Etheons and warns that anyone ignoring her order will be swinging from a rope. When one lord tries to speak up, she shuts him down so hard the air leaves the room. In the hallway, she bumps into the wicked princess, and the verbal sparring gets spicy fast. The princess learns the guards have been disbanded and lunges at the Queen, only to be restrained by a lord. In the middle of the squabble, the Queen learns the princess's mother had been replaced by an Etheon, suddenly explaining her hatred for them, and files that info away for later use. The Queen slips a letter to her friend, telling her to get it to Archer. The Etheon notices a book on Etheon cures lying around, and flatly tells her there is no cure. Princess Frances finally corners her daughter for a chat, blurts out her husband's secret, and immediately starts drafting divorce plans. The young lady refuses, making Frances suspect her daughter's gone soft on the man. The Queen then shuns her mother before making her way to her husband. She orders him to kiss her, then casually wonders aloud what would happen if she ditched the divorce idea. The kissing quickly turns heated, and in a blur, he's inside her. Her soft moans and sly smile say she's not exactly regretting it. Afterward, she admits she's invited the Etheons to the upcoming ceremony. Sure, it'll rile the wicked princess enough to make her attack in public and hold it against her. Elsewhere, an Etheon gets in to see Edward, urging him to run away with him, and promising a brighter future than Grandma has planned. Edward refuses, and after the Etheon leaves, Margaret strolls in and drops a double bombshell. He's an Etheon, and so is she.
I'm a tortoise.
You're an Etheon.
And so are you.
The boy looks like someone just stole his crown. Princess Bess packs to leave with Petunia for Grandma Margaret's place, but her good deed of leaving a warning note for the Queen backfires when Lord Seymour catches her. Seymour later storms into Princess Mary's chambers and finds Lord Norfolk already there. His suspicions are on the money, but Mary is too focused on her own ambitions to care, sending him stomping out in frustration. The banquet kicks off with Dudley calling for silence to announce the Queen's proclamation. He's blindsided when she announces she's scrapping the division laws and has invited Etheons to the banquet. Princess Mary's face practically changes seasons in rage, and while she restrains herself from a full-blown attack, she still manages to embarrass herself in front of the court. Guilford takes a playful jab at an Etheon about finding a cure, only to be told, nope, doesn't exist.
Hangover cure?
sex.
Eel pie.
The Queen backs that up in front of him, saying she hopes he can just be himself. Instead of taking the hint, he storms off to the stables, trailed by that same Etheon, who finally admits there actually is a cure.
I just came to tell you that I was lying.
Petunia reveals her true identity to the Queen and spills how 2 traitors took the king's life.
I know that you need evidence to accuse Mary and Seymour.
When the Queen goes to arrest them, Lord Seymour, fresh from chatting with little Margaret, already knows she's onto them. By the time she and her guards reach the target's room, it's empty, and Princess Mary is halfway out the door with her lover. The Queen announces to the court that the traitors have vanished and vows to hunt them down. While rallying the nobles to send men in search of the runaway lovers, she slips in her plan to end the division laws. Just then, a lady bursts into the hall, shortbow in hand, and lets an arrow fly straight at her. It's Archer, the Etheon, who dives in and knocks the Queen out of harm's way. As the echo of the shot fades, it hits her that these people aren't here for her safety. They're here for power. Over in Margaret's chambers, the old woman is still trying to force Edward into becoming an Etheon, but nothing works. She finally lays out her full scheme to make him an Etheon king, and then have him wipe the human verities clean off the map. Edward looks like she just asked him to eat sand. Word reaches the Queen that the nobles might leave her high and dry now that she's backing the abolition of the division laws. So she stages a tournament, though it's really just a clever trap to keep the nobles close until their armies arrive. If she's lucky, she'll also soften their stance on Etheons, or at least fool Princess Mary. She goes to the stables to find her husband, only to hear he's gone for good, chasing a cure for himself. And that stings. Edward, meanwhile, slips out of his room but bumps into Fitz, an Etheon with sticky fingers. After a brief scuffle, Fitz introduces himself as a thief for hire who, for the right price, will put Edward back on his throne. At dinner, Princess Catherine sends her sister to deliver a love note to Lord Norfolk's ward, but the man turns odd after reading it. Stan also sends a note to his older lover, but the woman burns it without even opening it, nearly making the young Dudley cry at the table. Across the room, Princess Frances is making eyes at young Lord Scrope, who looks just a little too trusting for his own good. Later, Edward and Fitz are plotting their escape when Fitz shifts into a cat. A nosy nun stumbles on them, and chaos breaks out. The cat ends up stuffed into a bag. The nun swings a spiked mace, and Edward's forced to defend himself with nothing but a short stick. He lands a few strikes, but she's too strong, knocking him onto a table and choking him while spitting that Margaret's been wrong about him all along. Just when things look fatal, Fitz shifts back to human, grabs a pan, and knocks the nun cold. They waste no time slipping away. With the skies dumping rain, the Queen decides to hold an indoor bowling game. Before long, everyone's into it except Stan, who storms off after Frances keeps fussing over Lord Scrope and calls Dudley a tainted name. The Queen tries pairing Lord Norfolk with Archer to get them working together, but Norfolk flips it. They'll play against each other, and if he wins, the division laws stay. If Archer wins, they go. The Queen hates it, but Dudley sides with Norfolk, and the deal is struck. In another hallway, Catherine's crush finds her. They patch things up, and they start kissing until her mother steps in, shoos him away, and forbids her from seeing him again. Turns out, he's William Seymour, son of the traitor Lord Seymour. The bowling match kicks off, and Norfolk quickly realizes Archer is good. Then they learn Archer is the son of a noble long-thought deceased. Despite Norfolk's technical tricks, Archer wins. The Queen wastes no time announcing that the division laws will be abolished at a formal signing. Stan lets slip that his brother's still carrying guilt over something, but won't say what. Right then, the young Lord Scrope, with a powerful army, strolls in and proposes to the Queen, thanks to Frances's scheming. The Queen turns him down, even with her mother and the young lord both insisting Guilford's never coming back. Fuming, she heads to her mother's rooms. Her mother doubles down on the marriage to Lord Scrope, once again reminding her that Guilford's gone. But the Queen knows her mother's fingerprints are all over his disappearance. She resolves to find her husband herself, but Rupert steps in, promising to go instead. He finally tells her that Guilford's mother's life was taken by Etheons, explaining his desperate need for a cure. That trip takes a dark turn when the man leading Guilford knocks him out and chains him to a tree, waiting for a beast trader. Guilford tricks him, escapes, and finds a stranger who breaks the chain from his neck. Now free, he wants nothing but to get back to his Jane. Back at the palace, Dudley brings grim news that both lords with big armies have fled, and Princess Mary has been spotted leading a massive force. The Queen begs Archer for help, but he refuses. She signs the abolition of the division laws on the spot. Moments later, Lords Norfolk and Seymour march in to overthrow her, taking her family hostage. She manages to slip away, but doesn't make it far before Princess Mary herself blocks her path. Princess Mary lifts the crown and settles it on her head, the metal catching the torchlight as the former queen watches from the shadows and her husband from even farther off. The new queen steps out for her first appearance as ruler and wastes no time promising to take the former queen's head clean off. Meanwhile, the ex-queen is locked in her own chambers under house arrest, her mind a blank page. Edward and Fitz make it to the palace gates, but the guards burst out laughing when Edward claims he's the king. Across the yard, his sister is angling for the former queen's blood. Edward spots Seymour and starts calling out, but Fitz knows a bad idea when he hears one. He drags Edward away, promising they'll find a better opening. Princess Frances goes to plead for her child's sake, but Mary's set on seeing the ex-queen's head roll. Then comes the knife twist. They mock Frances, telling her it was her own daughter, Margaret, who spilled the former queen's plan to capture them, letting them escape. Frances leaves fuming. At the banquet, Mary raises a toast to the former queen's beheading, but Norfolk leans in, calm as a man pouring wine, and suggests a public trial that's civil, fair, and good for avoiding unrest. Seymour backs him up, pointing to history, but Mary refuses. Only when they point out how much fun humiliating the ex-queen in public would be, does she give a sharp smile and agree. Not everyone's on board. Bess argues the former queen and her family should be sent away to prevent riots, but Mary laughs and says she'll burn her supporters if she must. That's when Petunia snaps, and she shifts into human form and lunges with a knife, missing her mark. She bolts, but Mary sees her sister whispering to Etheon to run. That's the last straw, as Mary disowns her on the spot and orders her locked away.
You are no longer my sister. Lock her in a room!
Guilford makes it back to the Dudley hideout, already set on rescuing his wife. His father tries to forbid it, swearing no one from their family will step near the palace and not share the former queen's fate. But Guilford's not listening. The former queen hears she's to have a trial and immediately gathers books, searching for some way to turn the tide. Meanwhile, Fitz takes Edward to an Etheon tavern, pours him some good wine, and waits for the contact who can get him inside the palace. Between drinks, Fitz starts dropping compliments. Guilford reaches the place where his wife is held and nearly cuts down the first guard he sees before holding back. He climbs to her window and slips inside. Her face lights up when she sees him, but she still scolds him for leaving. Words give way to kisses, and soon he's urging her to flee with him. She refuses, as leaving would doom her whole family. Then she begs him to go instead, but he stays, and the kisses grow heated. Before long, they've stripped away their clothes, the former queen riding him while muffling his moans, intent on making the most of what might be their last time together. Afterward, they lie tangled in sheets as she tells him what she knows of his mother's passing. Guilford admits he's long suspected himself, as on the night the Etheons attacked, he changed for the first time and has dreamt ever since that he hurt her. His father never confirmed or denied it. She insists staying for the trial is right, and promises she'll think of him always. Footsteps come, and Guilford slips away just in time. Back at the tavern, their man finally arrives. Charles, the palace's own Charles, and he's an Etheon too. Princess Frances enters the palace to find Margaret sitting smugly by the queen's side, her reward for saving Mary's life. Mary offers Frances the post of groom of the stool, official royal bottom washer. Margaret calls it an honor and urges her mother to smile while she accepts. Frances forces a smile, her eyes dark when she learns this was all Margaret's idea. Elsewhere, Stan wakes with the urge to help his brother. His father tries to stop him. Losing 2 sons would be too much, but Stan insists. Trial day arrives, and the former queen is led into the palace, Seymour conspicuously absent. Norfolk reads the charges, seizing the crown and treachery, plotting chaos against the throne, and destroying Queen Mary by signing the abolition of the division laws. He pushes for conviction, mutilation, and public display of her body. She stands to speak, and Mary tries to shut her down, but Norfolk allows it. Jane calmly says she only honored the late king's will and that the document was not forged. But Mary fires back that it was stolen. The ex-queen retorts that if she's a traitor for wearing the crown, then everyone who bowed to her is guilty too.
King Edward named me. Every single one of you bowed to me, so if I am a traitor, so are you!
Bess rises in support, declaring her brother did name her king. Mary bristles, but the council breaks into cheers. Jane's taken back to a room, where she's met by her cousin, Edward. They hug, and he offers to return to the council in her place. She refuses though, as everyone believes him deceased, and Mary would end him instantly. Instead, she advises him to reclaim the throne only when he has the power to hold it. The court finds her not guilty of high treason, but Mary isn't done, not with Seymour suddenly back at her side. Fitz finds Edward and apologizes for disappearing. He explains Seymour has his sister locked in a secret Etheon prison, and his plan was to trade Edward for her freedom. But when it came to it, he couldn't hand Edward over. Edward's intrigued and attracted. They kiss, both grinning like boys with a dangerous secret. Then, Rupert is hauled before the council and forced to admit Guildford is an Etheon. Seymour, it turns out, arranged the whole thing. A horse is led in, and they wait for sunset. When the last light slips away, the horse shifts. Guildford stands before them, and everyone knows the sentence: execution. Jane is taken to the Tower of London, where royalty who are convicted and condemned are never to be seen again. In her cell, she wants to know from the prisoner if her husband has been kept in the tower too, but they refuse to answer until she suggests treatment for one guard, who then takes pity on her and tells her that Guildford isn't there. At the palace, while citizens are outside protesting for the release of Jane, and even calling her their queen, Mary amuses herself by blindfolding helpless people and making them run, only to fire at them from close range before bragging about her aim. It's Bess's turn to run, yet the monarch deliberately misses her shot. Norfolk speaks out against the cruelty, calling her a tyrant and urging her to focus on the people's demands. But instead of harming her sister, the ruler turns her crossbow on him and puts an arrow in his chest, sending the lord crashing lifeless to the floor. Frances quickly steps forward and urges the queen to walk with her, while she shares a suggestion for dealing with the angry crowd. Jane uses her eating utensil to dig at the base of the window's burglar bar, but the height is too dangerous for her to attempt scaling, so she places it back just before her mom enters. She's made a deal with Queen Mary on her behalf that she will denounce Etheonism, thereby denouncing her husband and saying that she was under an Etheon spell. Of course, the prisoner disagrees, and her mom wonders why she's so adamant and doesn't listen to her. She thinks her daughter is weak, but Jane thinks she's just not cold like her mom, who's unable to receive love and give love. Well, the woman begs the young royal to take the deal and not fumble it, but the stubborn captive will only consider it after seeing her husband. Guildford wakes up in Seymour's prison, and when he attempts to get the guard's attention, Alice, Fitz's sister, tells him that it's better to be forgotten there than to get the attention of the guards. The lass is led to the stable, overjoyed at the thought of seeing her man. She bounds in but finds bloodstains and what looks like a corpse, so she's sobbing buckets. The queen struts in, mocks her tears, then says her goodman's alive, though she won't say where. The ruler taunts that she'll behead her for sure, but will also behead her man while her loved ones watch, unless she reads a letter in court. She hands over the paper, but Jane isn't fooled. Edward and Fitz arrive at the Etheon's camp to ask for help in saving Jane from the wicked queen. When Archer refuses, Edward promises to fight for them and give them a better life after he returns as king. But Archer won't change his mind, saying it's too late for promises. Williams finds Princess Catherine in the garden and professes his loyalty and love to her, swearing that he has nothing to do with Seymour's plans. He offers her a chance to run away with him, but the lady would never do such, as she's the only one her mom has left, with Jane about to be beheaded, and Margaret fully with the queen. At the Tower of London, the ex-queen rehearses her speech from the tyrant, but the guard enters and tells her to sound more convincing. He also goes on to reveal his fair share of losing a loved one due to the anti-Ethiopianism laws. Jane just wants to get a word to her husband, but that isn't happening anytime soon. Lord Seymour pays Guildford a visit and gives him the option of staying in his prison and being useful to the throne while they fake his punishment, or he actually goes on to share the same fate as his wife. The man would rather his life ended than remain in prison, and of course, Seymour lets him have his way. The queen orders the lass's mum to clean her up after a privy mishap and then carries on. She's thrilled about her plans for the lass's man, but the young sister asks why she's breaking her word to spare him. She tells the kid that politics is a game of lies and deceit. In a jiffy, Charles enters with a letter and a box from the King of Spain. The young sister visits her doomed sibling, boasting of her closeness to the queen. The lass urges her to be kind, not just strong, to all, including their mum. The girl spills that the queen plans to execute her and her goodman together, so Jane thanks her for the tip, and they trade curses about the queen. The girl slips her a utensil during a hug before leaving. The queen has a proposal from the Spanish king, who has eradicated Etheons from his kingdom, to marry him, and she agrees, discarding Seymour and planning to make Catherine his wife. But the young lady disagrees, disobeying her mom and asking Williams to marry her instead. The lady goes over to the window and uses the spoon to scoop a plant growing on the wall, but the guards only suspect an escape, drag her back and fix the window. However, she succeeds in getting the plant. Then she gets carbon from the walls and candle wax and mixes a portion that she smears on a letter. She's taken to the palace for her speech, where she dabs the potion on her lips and tries to kiss the queen, saying it's a custom for begging mercy. The queen cares only for the speech, so the last begins. She admits her selfish, rash days as queen, but says she's condemned for another reason. She accuses the kingdom's elite of turning folk against Etheons, calling it the true evil that she will have no part in. The furious queen orders her dragged off as the crowd murmurs loudly. Dudley and Stan are headed to save Guilford, but they first take out 2 guards with shovels, then disguise themselves as guards and proceed into the prison. Stan knocks out Seymour and steals the prison keys, then goes on to set his brother free. But not long after, the wicked man is awake and rallies guards to pursue the men. Guilford tries to free Alice, but she's too scared to incur the Lord's wrath, so they leave her with the key just in case she changes her mind. Guilford decides to stay back and fight, but before the 2 men leave, Dudley tells him that even though he ended his mom's life, it was a mistake, and the late woman loved him wholeheartedly. They run away, and Seymour shows up, willing to fight Guilford alone. The Lord has the upper hand, making the horsemen go on the defensive, but the tide turns, and Guilford beats him, pointing the sword at his neck. The guards save the day for him, and when he hopes to be slain, he's sent back to his cell. Susanna feels sad for not being able to help her friend, even though Archer thinks it's a very bad move to go into a war with Verities that they'll probably lose. Edward whines about failing at saving his cousin and the kingdom, but his friend encourages him to do something, and an idea comes to him instantly. At the Tudor Jamboree, the crowd's wild with excitement. The queen is in her element, but the young princess is missing. With Goodman tied to a stake for burning, Jane is led to the gallows. Her family's heartbroken, but the queen's savoring it like fine wine. Blindfolded, neck on the block, she braces for the end, but her hawk friend swoops in, blinding the executioner, who cuts his own leg. Etheons as birds swarm the hall, causing chaos, but the queen orders the stake lit, and it's done. Jane heads to save her husband, but her mom's call for her to duck for cover saves her from the guards. Meanwhile, Stan and the older Dudley join in the fun. Jane tries to free her husband, but the rope's too tight, making them give up and resign to ill fate. But as they kiss, Guilford is able to transform, freeing himself. Jane happily jumps on him, then they both ride off, while the queen looks on in anger and utmost pain. The queen becomes a bitter soul, destroying things and threatening others with weapons. Princess Bess is actually an Etheon but conceals it. Stan and Princess Frances rekindle their fire. Catherine and William wed secretly, and Edward and Fitz are lovers. Guilford and Jane are free, but Jane would never run, so she plans on going back to the kingdom. And of course, her beloved husband will join her.